Tai Lung. Big fan. Once I possess the kung fu of every master villain, no one will dare question my power.
Not even the great Dragon Warrior.
Kung Fu Panda 4. I gotta say, I had high hopes for this one. The first Kung Fu Panda was a delightful breath of fresh air tackling adult problems in a fun, carefree way that kids could understand. Kung Fu Panda 2 expanded on the world and included some more heavy-hitting adult themes and then some, and Kung Fu Panda 3 had genocide in it. That was a weird branch. And then the franchise was silent for 8 years until Kung Fu Panda 4 came out last week, promising the return of Tai Lung from the first movie and other baddies from the previous films, and what a total letdown this movie was. It went from a smart series dealing with heavy subject matter in an engaging way with multiple spectacles of cartoony martial arts and spiritualism into a paint-by-numbers sequel meant only to set up future spin-offs of the brand in an amazingly phoned-in way that just felt insulting coming back as an adult viewer. What a pain. I was tempted to walk out of this movie halfway through. I was that annoyed with it. Much like the pacing in this movie, though, I'm getting ahead of myself. Kung Fu Panda 4 follows the continuing adventures of Po, the Kung Fu Panda, as he works as the Dragon Warrior until Master Shifu tells him it's time to find and start training an apprentice to take the mantle of Dragon Warrior. Meanwhile, a malicious, shape-shifting figure known as the Chameleon seeks to bring back former martial arts masters and Po's defeated enemies to steal their abilities for herself. So Po must team up with a fox thief named Zhen and his 2 dads to find and defeat the Chameleon. If you're wondering where the Furious 5 are in that plot, they are not in this movie. They're relegated to a no dialogue cameo position. Even Tai Lung, who gets major billing as returning, has very, very few lines, probably around 10 or less. He's only on screen with Po for maybe a minute at most. It's incredibly disappointing. I'll start the meat of this review by saying that as a movie goes, this isn't bad. Its animation is beautiful, the fight scenes are amazing, and the Chameleon looks and sounds intimidating. As a film goes, it's not very challenging, has an okay, if not minimally explored moral with a very obvious payoff, but it's otherwise inoffensive. And that's a problem. It's just okay, mediocre. It does nothing really new or unique, which is not what the franchise is known for. Each film builds on the past one in a very satisfying way, and this one just doesn't. It's a barely explored moral, and none of the main characters show much growth at all, besides maybe Zhen, but it's obvious forced growth that you can see coming a mile away. Some jokes land, most don't, and the voice acting is just okay. Usually Jack Black as Po puts in a stellar high-energy performance, but this felt odd, like he was only half trying. It's not bad, but it's not anything fantastic. Awkwafina as Zhen is also just okay, but she really needs to stop getting typecasted with her vocal roles. I know a lot of people aren't big Awkwafina fans, but she was just fine. There wasn't anything bad, nothing really particularly good, but she kinda coasted. It was fine. Dustin Hoffman, though, really phoned it in. He very clearly didn't want to do this movie anymore. You can tell he just didn't want to bother with being Shifu. And Ian McShane does a fine job as Tai Lung. Great to have him back. If only Tai had more of a presence. Ugh. The true vocal star here, though, is Viola Davis as the Chameleon. I don't know what she is doing, but it is working. Her voice is perfect to be eccentric yet menacing, and she really brings a fun air to an otherwise just okay villain compared to Poe's other rogues gallery. Other than that, there are 2 main issues with this film, and a very weird history that I'll get into a little later as to why it took 8 years to make. The 2 big main issues are the pacing and the story. For one, the pacing is absolutely atrocious. It's ridiculously fast, cramming in a ton of exposition and plot and travel in just the first 20 minutes, and it never lets up until the climax. The couple kung fu fights that happen on the way are wonderful breaks in an otherwise frustratingly fast film, but they never last long enough thanks to the rapid progression and jumping from A plot to B plot until the plots merge, yada yada. And the story is so agonizingly paint by numbers. Every lesson, every action, and every line of dialogue is something that I guarantee you have heard in some form of another, probably in children's media. There are no surprises. The cute kids are vicious criminals. Oh no, trustworthy person isn't trustworthy. Oh no, the shapeshifter shapeshifted. It's so painfully drab. It makes this movie feel like it should have gone straight to streaming and released as a Netflix special or something. There is nothing challenging or interesting enough that happens plot-wise to justify a thorough watch. It's entertaining, sure. I was just fine watching it. I want to emphasize that this is a well-made movie. It's just not well executed. And what bugs me is that a better story is so easy to come up with. Here, I'll do it right now. Tell me how this plot sounds to you guys in the comments below. The Chameleon succeeds in summoning past masters and villains and in taking their power for her own. Actually, doesn't that sound similar to Kai from Kung Fu Panda 3 now that I say it? Either way, this would be the prologue. Tai Lung is the only one to escape and is forced to seek out his nemesis Po in order to fight the Chameleon together and restore balance. Po, meanwhile, is grappling along with the Furious Five as Shifu instructs them to start training apprentices. Some are receptive to the idea, others, probably Tigress and Po, are reluctant to move on. The group finds 5 potential students, including the fox thief Zhen, and through shenanigans have to train them while traveling with Tai Lung to take on the Chameleon. At the end, the Chameleon is bested and Tai Lung and Po can settle their differences. Po can offer the Dragon Warrior position to Tai, who would refuse it, ending his character arc by accepting he never needed the title and his true position as a spiritual leader as well. The Chameleon can either be redeemed or eliminated depending on story, and the movie can end with Po either choosing a new Dragon Warrior or by leaving it up for a potential sequel or spin-off following the successful passing of the torch. There, isn't that so much more nuanced and interesting? I feel that has so much more potential while still leaving the franchise open for being explored further and including more characters instead of just really 2 new ones. This movie does leave things slightly open with a torch passed and a lesson learned, but it's so unsatisfying and obvious and just feels less than what Kung Fu Panda as a franchise deserves. It's a good franchise. As for why this film is so weirdly disjointed when Kung Fu Panda is usually well thought out, that might stem from a dispute over creative differences between the director, the studio, and the crew. According to a Q&A post with a co-director for Kung Fu Panda 4 known as Story Duke or SJ Stein on Twitter, director Mike Mitchell had a lot of, let's call them, unique ideas for the film. Originally, the story was to be an animation live-action hybrid, incorporating live-action humans hailing from a place called Human City to interact with the cast. This probably, obviously, wasn't a good idea, so good thing that got scrapped. Allegedly, Tai Lung's inclusion was also a last-minute decision, and other decisions were last-minute as well, like including the Chameleon's backstory, which does explain why she just says it in the film instead of showing it. The film was also mandated to be around 85 minutes or as close to it as possible because the studio doesn't think that kids can pay attention for more than that. And also a smaller runtime means more showings can fit in a day, so I guess that's a business decision. I dislike that ultimately. Whatever, I guess that's why the pacing was so bad. Tai Lung was only included because the execs thought Po needed to get back to his roots, but because he was added so late in the development, he was barely put in the film. Absolute waste. So there you go. That's the quick lowdown on why this movie had such a weird development and a meager result. Allegedly, there's hopes in doing a Furious 5 spinoff, so maybe we'll see that. In the meantime, though, I can't recommend this movie to you. I'm sorry. I'd say watch it on streaming at home when it finally comes out. It's not worth the theater purchase, and frankly, it's a very forgettable, easy to miss movie that does continue the story, but it doesn't have anything you really need to watch. No one has any character growth besides the singular new character, and it's obvious what happens, so don't worry about that. The only other saving grace this movie does have is the not gay dads are cool. It's fun to have these two representatives of a same-sex couple being like, our son, but they're not in a relationship, but they're still kind of playing off of each other. That's actually pretty enjoyable. I did like that a lot, but that's it. Overall, I have to give this movie a minimal score. It's not a terrible watch, it's well made, but it's just poorly executed story-wise, with barely a few saving graces keeping it from being absolutely trash. Unfortunately, and ultimately, Kung Fu Panda 4 gets a 6 out of 10 from me. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around for another one. This bugged me. I know it had a reference or two to the show as well. I never watched the show, but it had a character show up in the background. I believe that was from the show, or at least I think I recognized them from like the Netflix banner. It's not important. The directors even said that they don't consider the TV show canon. I feel like there's a bunch of different ways that the Kung Fu Panda franchise can be continued, and I feel like it's gonna be continued either way. I know the Chinese government probably has a lot to say about that too, but I don't know. A Furious 5 spinoff sounds fun. They're great characters, and it's a shame that they weren't in this movie, which, why? I'm annoyed. The first movie I go see in theaters in a couple of months is this, and I was expecting a lot, and it was trash, and I'm so upset right now. I don't know. Do you guys think that this was a better movie than you thought? Do you have any ideas for how it could be fixed? I know I gave my whole rewrite of the story. I think that would work just fine, but I don't know. I'm not a studio executive, so my opinion means nothing. I just scream into the void on YouTube here, and who stays for these? Hey, comment down below if you can hear this. Woo! Anyway. Let me know what else you guys think about this movie or any other movies you want me to check out. I have a couple of fun ideas for the next few weeks that are coming out in theaters, so we'll definitely see. After that, don't forget to like the video, click that subscribe button, hit that bell so you don't miss a video, and yeah, that's it. Have a great day, and if you're not, have a better one. See ya.
I'm just a ghost in your stereo, the fading memory of a shipwreck in the undertow. You're just a lost song, and I'm just a